Okay, so let's take a look at how you can create Azure SQL database instance and how to use that to connect to TablePlus, right? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check the Azure portal, and here I will go to services, then I will check databases, right? Within databases, we will have to check for Azure SQL. As you can see, this is the Azure SQL service. We'll click on it. Now I already have instance of Azure SQL, and you will notice that every time I create a database, it will get added here, right? I can also delete anything from this particular list, right? So let's say when you want to delete something, you just have to click on delete and then verify the deletion. Right, now the thing is you want to create a new instance, right? So to do that, you will click on create, right? Now here you will see SQL deployment options from SQL databases, manage instance and virtual machine. Each of them have a specific use. So if you already have SQL servers elsewhere and you want to migrate to a better performance server, you will use manage instance. There is also SQL virtual machine when you want to have control over entire operating system licenses and your SQL server, then you will use SQL virtual machine option. Then comes this SQL database option where you have resources and which is currently set for single instance, right? So I will use this particular single database option, out of which there is also elastic pool and database server. Each of them gives you scalability and better performance, right? So in this particular option I will choose single database for test. So simply click on create. Now here you will notice it will show you a bunch of options. First, subscription. Here you can be free trial or pay as you go. Then there is resource group. You will select that or create new. Then comes your database. You can choose the name of that. Also choose the name of database server, right? Here you can create new if you haven't already, where you can also pick the location of the server, right? Now comes the SQL elastic pool option, where you can see that you have to choose between yes or no. I selected no because this is test database. Now here you see compute plus storage option, where you can configure the database, right? Here you will choose your basic DTU model up to 2 GB of data. Click apply and move ahead for next option. So here you see backup storage redundancy. So some people choose geo redundant and zone redundant. Based on their requirement, I will choose just local, right? So locally redundant backup storage, right? Now let's click on next option for networking, where we set the firewall rules. We add our current IP, choose private endpoint if we want any. Then collection policy, we can choose between default, proxy and redirect. Once you do that, you can move next to security, where you can choose Microsoft Defender for SQL, where you can choose the free trial or you can choose not to. There is also ledger option that you can configure, and finally comes the identity. As you can see, that is one of the options. Now we move on to next settings, where we can choose a sample database or we can create one from scratch, right? There is also database collation. By default it's set to SQL Latin General CP1 CIAS. You can change to something else if you want. Just click on find a collation and move from there. There is this maintenance window which happens for SQL Server, and it is selected by default for you, so you don't have to do anything. Now let's click on tags. So when you are organizing your database, you add your name and value tags for the resource. Then comes review and create, where you can review all the parameters and click on create. Now I already have one such instance. As you can see, I have server and this SQL database attached to it. So I will access that particular database. Now here within overview, we will collect some parameters like server name, username, the password that we already set during the setup of that instance, right? So this should give you an idea things you need for connecting your database to any external applications like TablePlus or say Azure Data Studio, SSMS, and even for dbeaver. So let's first open our external application TablePlus. So here I already have it installed. You can take a look at its name and logo, and while searching on Google you will find the rest. Right now here what we need is click on plus sign and choose SQL Server. Right now we have to add some details here. Here I will select Azure SQL. Right, then in host I will copy and then paste the name. Then user, I already have the name of that user, and then password. Now let's click on plus sign, then Azure SQL Server. Next we add our password. We will also add our username. We will add Azure SQL as our name here. Choose color, status, and then host. Now host we will add that URL, and here we will paste that. Now for database I can pick the name from here, and that would be DevDB. Now let's test out the connection, and as you can see it will return OK. Right, that means our method for connecting TablePlus with this Azure SQL Server worked. Right, now what we can do is we can click on connect so that we can have a dedicated window connected to that particular database. Now here on the left hand side you can see all the available tables. We have build version table, error log table. Right, another thing is if I want to import some data, I can use from CSV. I can also import SQL dump or even create new table. Right, so here let me first get rid of everything that we have. Right, so let's delete this for now, and from here let's create new table. Now let's start from our first column name ID. Right, then we will add another column. Let's put it as 1. Here I can also use something like name, and then here you can choose, let's say, data type default change to something else. Let's say, right, so we picked varchar. Then we will pick another column, let's say date or even phone. For that we will just choose again varchar. Right, so varchar. Right, like this we have structure created. Now this is one way to use the table creation option. Another option which is much easier is using SQL. Right, so you can import the SQL file. Right, if you don't have SQL file you can pick the CSV. So let's say I have this file, let's name this jar data CSV. If you want something different you can also use files. Right, here you see I have like 100 rows of user data. right? So I'm going to select this new CSV data to add into the SQL server, right? Here you can see it allows me the option to add into an existing table, or I can create a new table, right? Now while we are creating import, it will take a bit of time and we can now reload. So control R, right? So that's one way to reload, or you can simply use refresh. That's another option, right? So if we right click and let's see, so if we use control R, it should show me the table. If I click on it, it should show you all the data columns and you will be able to scroll into it. You can edit this, add new row by right clicking on it, right? Or also select the row and work on that. So it should work. As you can see, this pretty much sums up how to create a table in table space for your Azure SQL. So we managed to establish the connection, we work with the data, we are learning to perform some of the small operations. All of this can be easily done with the help of TablePlus.